Co-commentator joining us live from Beirut. If you could please stand by. We're also joined by Mr. Saeb Shaath, who is joining us from Belfast, author and Middle East affairs expert. Mr. Shaath, could you also elaborate on the effects that social media can have? It is very important to raise awareness regarding the plight of Palestinians, basically because mainstream media is not covering that, and Israel is hoping to allow oblivion to let it do what it wants to do with these occupied territories. One very good move by Palestinians is a great March of Return rallies that began last year in March, and of course news coverage of those rallies that are happening every week, and the Israeli aggression against those rallies is raising awareness, international awareness. Can you tell us also about these Quds rallies and the effect that social media can have to raise awareness, particularly in parts of the world where people don't have access to free information?
Well, today, the social media plays a major role in enlightening the people around the globe with a lot of the news which the empire, United States of America, and its allies like the Zionist entity, Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, and the rest, try to ban and to deny the people around the world to know on issues like Palestine, Syria, Iraq, Venezuela, the stagnating siege imposed on these countries, in Iran, try to threat the people of Iran with war to instigate a regime change and chaos. All of these things are denied to the people to know about. And the United States of America, as Trump said so many times in his interviews, he wants the oil, he wants the resources, he wants to loot openly on American media, before he was elected and after he was elected. He wants to loot the wealth of Iraq, the oil of Iraq. He wants to put rings, as he said, around the oil fields. When he talks about the oil fields, he talks about oil fields from Venezuela to Iraq to Iran. This is the way the world today, dealing with aggressors, with thieves, with looters, who speaks freely in the name of the free world. So the social media is important, but at the same time we see there is moves from the companies who organize or control social media like Facebook and the rest, to try to eliminate a lot of information from there and call it fake news and delete it. We notice Google as well, when it bans Press TV from have in YouTube, its own YouTube channel, to silence it. And before that, we noticed the intensive campaign in the West to silence Press TV. So today, when the great March of Return of protests in Gaza is held under the banners of International Quds Day, the posters reads "No to the deal of the century" and the hashtag, which is Tower Jerusalem. So the events of Quds Day, which is held annually around the world, take it from Iran, Palestine, the Arab world, the Muslim world, Western countries, Latin American countries, and many others. All of that is fulfillment on the ruling, which is the late leader of the Islamic Revolution, the founder of the Islamic Republic, Imam Khomeini, designated that the solidarity with the oppressed Palestinian people, to show the Muslims around the world and their friends that the liberation of Palestine from the Zionist occupation is a duty in them all, and they must take part in liberating Palestine. So today, when we see al-Quds Day, again, the main slogan is no to the deal of the century, that the defeat of the deal of the century and civilization of the Palestine question. This is amazing and it's very important. Comes at a critical This to oppose and resist Trump's war of terror on Palestine and the region, which he called it and under term the deal of the century. And its purpose actually to eliminate the question of Palestine, deny the Palestinian refugees their right to return home, which is granted by international law and the United Nations in Resolution 194. So the realization of the deal of the century to the planners, to the Trump administration, will open the door as the leader of the Hezbollah, the Lebanese resistance, read is the settlement of the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, and many other countries, and to deny them to go home. This is the danger. So when we see in the rallies this slogan under the Quds Day, to defeat of the deal of the century, is very important, focusing the masses in one political direction to defeat the domination of the region of the United States of America and the Zionist entity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaath, for pointing that out. It is very important to note that the summit that will be held in Bahrain on the economic aspects of the deal of the century is going to be held at the end of June. This makes these rallies even more significant. Let's turn back to Mr. Kamel Wazni, political analyst and commentator who's joining us live from Beirut. Mr. Wazni, can you tell us more about the significance of these rallies while we're also expecting this summit to be held in Bahrain? Unfortunately, with the presence of Muslim Arab countries, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which are supposed to be backing their Muslim brothers. Unfortunately, they're taking part in the summit. Can you tell us more about the significance of the rallies in the wake of the summit?
Well, obviously, there's the voice of the people on the street in the Muslim world and the free world still with the Palestinian people. The Palestinian to have a state, a dignified state, the right to live in their homeland, the right to return for those refugees to go back to occupied Palestine, the right for the aspiration for that people to able to confront the occupation and to continue seeking their and removing the siege that imposed on them. I think the solidarity today in face of what the United States and its Arab allies trying to do, they're trying to sell Palestine and deny the Palestinian for their rightly to live in that country. They assume that if they have a conference and they make some compensation or they try to buy the people of Palestine, this will be okay, and this will give the Palestinian land to the Israeli, and everything will be settled. Obviously, everybody is rejecting this assumption, and it's a failed attempt by the United States, and it's a failed attempt by the Trump administration, who does not understand the depths of the confrontation that is taken on this holy land in Palestine. My assessment, the Palestinians are determined to liberate their land. That's their right, that's their duty, and that's their mission. And they're not left alone. The fact that somebody wanted to conspire against the will of the Palestinian people, there's other side of the story. There's millions and hundreds of millions, as we see throughout the world, from every part of the world, who's actually wanted to have continue the confrontation until what is supposed to be right, and the right the Palestinian to live and dignified in their homeland. The United States trying
Thank you very
to,
much, Mr. Wazni. I'm very sorry we are running out of time, Mr. Wazni. Thank you very much for your elaborations. Let's turn back to Mr. Saeb. Shaath. Mr. Shaath, do you think that the rallies today can in any way affect this upcoming conference in Bahrain?
You see, the conference of Bahrain, which the United States of America is promoting today in a way to bribe the Palestinians and tell them if in the future, if they accept the political side of it, which is the deal of the century, this will bring them peace and prosperity. The Palestinians seen that when they promised in Gaza Strip and the West Bank to have, as they call it, a new Singapore in there. This is what Oslo agreement will bring, and we witness what the Oslo agreement they brought to the Palestinians: destruction, starvation in Gaza, blockade, and the whole world knows about that. So these states who is promoting that, like Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or United Emirates, are betraying the Arab masses who unified behind the Palestinian united position against this conference. And these masses today directing the message and telling them, you are betraying the Islamic and Arabic cause. I don't know what they need more than that. But these governments, like in Bahrain and in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, are stooges for the United States of America. And the Palestinian, when they express their extreme opposition to that, to worship in Bahrain, they come and supported by large states and countries like Iran, Russia, and China. And so let the stooges in the region, like Saudis and the Emiratis, show their level and their weight in the Arabic region and the Islamic region, if they can change anything. But they in Mecca holding 3 summits, the Arabic Summit, the Islamic Summit, and the Gulf State Summit, and trying in the to do their own, the United States of America's bid in disuniting the Arab and Muslim, which is supposed to be united today in facing the deal of the century, in facing what the Americans doing, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the United States of America, the capital of the Zionist entity, and Americans move of their embassy there, the encouragement of the Americans to the Israelis to annex the Arabs' lands, and the Americans recognizing it like they done in the occupied Golan Heights, and the same thing in the West Bank. They trying to annex most of the lands and push the Palestinians in the future out of the occupied Palestine toward Jordan and toward Egypt, and conquer most of Palestine. This is what the deal of the century is talking about, while in Saudi Arabia, the Saudis are busy in promoting Israel as a friend to the Arabs and to the Muslims, and trying to change the understanding of the real cause in there. Israel is the enemy, Israel is the aggressor, but the Saudis, to them, they want to make, by their money and by the threats of the United States of America's carriers and war machines in the region and soldiers on the ground, that Iran is the enemy. But this won't work, because the Muslim masses knows Iran is the leading force to defend the Palestinians and help the Palestinians, and to try to liberate the occupied holy sites, which is occupied by the Zionist entity.